Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Monday. It is November the 24th, which means it is Thanksgiving week. This whole week, we are working up towards Thanksgiving. I had kind of a fun chat with my buddy Steve Baker on Friday, and he realized that it was Thanksgiving week, but only on Friday afternoon when someone told him that they were heading home for Thanksgiving. Maybe some of you don't realize what week it is because your head is down and you're in the battle, whatever your personal battle is. Maybe you are trying to accomplish something. Maybe you're trying to prove a case. Maybe you are trying to keep your business afloat or your family together or solve a problem in a relationship or find a new job or any of the many things that are vexing all of us. And this is supposed to be that week when we take a minute and realize that there are some more important things out there in the world. It's also kind of a good time to take stock of where are we and where have we been and what is real and what's important. And this weekend, I realized something kind of fun. A huge chunk of the social media nonsense, which unfortunately I spend way more time on than I care, it's all fake. It's completely fake. It's always been fake. For those of us that have like a little bit more experience in the world, if you are older than the age of 40, maybe if you're older than the age of 35, I don't know, something like that. You know that it's not real because you've lived in the real. But there are a huge chunk of people, and many of them are of voting age, that actually think that everything that is going on news websites and on podcasts and on social media, whether it be Facebook or X or Reddit or wherever other places you are, that they think it's actually legit, that this is actually an indication of the way that the world works. But all you need to do is step out into the actual world for you to realize that that's not true. And we got some really interesting evidence that that is the case this weekend or going into the weekend, where the X Corporation and Elon Musk started requiring or maybe publicly revealing the location of major accounts with huge amounts of followers, hundreds of thousands of followers, and where they are based. And what we found out is that some of your favorite MAGA accounts that are out there and they're spewing things that make you feel good and they're sort of like positive propaganda, or they're showing video clips and they're making claims like they are hanging out in Florida. They're actually in India or Pakistan or Nigeria or Australia. And that American politics is big business for people who are not American. I think that's quite interesting. We heard for years and years that the FBI was going to investigate foreign election interference and the movement on social media. And so this administration theoretically came in and knew that there was a real problem with censorship and a lack of transparency. And, you know, they wanted to go out there and be real. And what did they do? They immediately started playing to an X, specifically because Elon Musk was in the White House. They went to the social media site Twitter and pretended like that was legit. And now we find out that dozens and dozens of these huge MAGA accounts with hundreds and hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of followers, are completely full of shit. There's no nice way to say it. It's just made up. It's astroturfed. And so the grass is greener when it's fake, is sort of the way that I was thinking about it. But that's in contrast to a couple of things. This Sunday, for those of you that go to a Catholic service, you know that it was the Feast of Christ the King, which is not the oldest feast day in the Catholic calendar. That's only about 100 years old. And it popped up when the Pope was looking into the world and seeing a rise of secularism and of atheism and of totalitarian regimes and of a subjugation of the religious to a second, third, or fourth tier in people's lives. So it was a reminder that the King of the universe is Jesus Christ. That's the purpose of the feast day that we celebrated on Sunday, for those, again, who went to Mass. It's a good reminder for all of you that there's far more out there. There's far more real out there. But it's actually really hard to remember that when you're in the kind of daily grind and the battles where you're looking down and, again, you're looking for a job. You're trying to figure out if you can afford things, car payments and eggs and food, and inflation is going up, and what's the housing market look like, and all the other million things out there. And those are more real. And unfortunately, it seems like the political administration is focused on things that are so far beyond real. They're not focusing on the hereafter, and they're not focusing on the eternal. They're focusing on the transient and the fake. Maybe that's why we have such an unserious nation. We keep seeing people say that. We all kind of agree that it's not serious, but the problems are truly serious. So that's tough for us to deal with. I've got a big smorgasbord of nonsense. I've got our FBI director and our Homeland Security woman telling us she's going to spend $1 billion more on tracking software and being able to watch us when we travel. Thank God that we have more government nanny states. We've got the FBI director going and hanging out the F1 races in Vegas. I'm sure that cost us a pretty penny for this very silly photo shoot. And then we've got this reveal of how fake things are in real time. We can see it. It's just a good reminder on a week when we're supposed to be focusing on that which we're thankful for, that the real things are really still worth being thankful for. And I spent the weekend lighting fires with my kids in a fire pit and hanging out with my parents who drove in and swapping a battery on my dad's little tow behind car for their RV, which are all real things, like, using a set of tools and hanging out with your family and solving physical problems in the physical world, all way better than the junk that exists on social media. And of course, like, we all got to go to mass together, which is great. So we're going to cover all of that stuff. We're going to cover some of these news stories, which are bizarre, the kind of lies that the Trump administration has been telling us and kind of pumping up, and whether or not we want to believe it, the separation. Marjorie Taylor Greene decided that she's done with the fake. And as you guys are saying in the chat, the fake and the gay. It's just, people are giving up on it. And I wonder what the next iteration looks like as people start realizing that we can focus on things that are real and not some Astroturf nonsense, and not some sort of fake movement that doesn't actually coalesce behind principles. So let's see. What is real? I'll tell you, this one is real. You can actually be scammed. You can actually have your real dollars taken away by scumbags who may be in Nigeria or may be in Pakistan or India. And if you guys want to go ahead and get yourself insulated against that, the website that we use, one of the ways you can protect yourself is getting your name out of the pile. The folks over at Patriot Protect, they're running their best special, I think, of the year right now. It's 50% off, so that's fantastic. The website is patriot-protect.com/Kyle. Type in promo code BF for Black Friday 50 and save half off. That's pretty good. There was a Gmail data breach very recently. It exposed millions of people, which means that your personal information can be at risk. The whistleblowers had said that 183 million user accounts over on Gmail, which is almost all of us, have been sacrificed into the ether. Millions of email passwords stolen, and now they're circulating online, which puts your bank accounts and your emails and more at risk. Google publicly denies the breach, which means that they sort of have a vested interest in making sure they still look legit. But if you guys want to make sure that criminals who are trying to compile your information and add them to data broker websites and people search websites and public databases with your email and your phone number and your workplace and your family members and all the things that we hold dear, if you want to keep those things out of that pile from scammers and hackers and scumbags from all over the place, make sure you guys are protecting yourself. A lot of folks report as many as 90% of their scam and robodials disappear because the phone numbers are not there. Again, it's patriot-protect.com/KYLE to get to the website, and then go ahead and type in BF for Black Friday 50. There is a link in the show description, which will remind you. You can see a very nice graphic up on the screen right now to help visually key that in. If you guys were waiting for a time to do it, this is the way to do it, and half off. Can't go wrong with that. That's going to give you the best deal, I think, of the year. That's how a lot of people do their purchasing. All right, we're going to get into today's program with some silliness, some stupidity, and we'll just kind of poke at all the people out there that are saying ridiculous things and see if we can hone in on what is, in fact, real, starting right now. So, what is real? I'll tell you what's real. Getting shot for being a dummy. That's a one real thing. And it's hard to say otherwise. CNN is covering this story of a woman who was shot, and then the case fell apart, And that's also kind of suspect. This is a lady who supposedly rammed some people in the Border Patrol. And I think we covered this story at the time. She got shot 5 times. Apparently the Border Patrol agents were really proud of their shooting. She was able to give an interview, which means I don't think you should be that proud of your shooting. I'm just saying, if you're shooting somebody and they're still standing and they've got holes in their arm that they're showing on a screen, usually means you didn't do as good a job as you thought you did. Woman's name is Marimar Martinez. She's a first-generation American, and she came here, her parents came here, and then she decided that it was her job as someone who also was related to another country. She should warn people that are here illegally in this country that they should avoid ICE agents who want to deport them. That might have been one of the biggest promises that Donald Trump made, that he was going to solve the illegal immigration crisis. I've got some points on that I think are worth discussing. He made an announcement very recently as well, talking about Somalis or Somalians that are in Minnesota, and they're going to end the temporary protected status. As cool as that sounds, and as much as that sounds like it would solve a problem, it's only going to affect 705 people. And it's just like so many other things that are happening in the Trump administration, where it sounded really good when you pitched it, and then the actual implementation is really mediocre, to the point where those of us that really were hoping for a big, strong move, even if we were realistic and tempered our expectations, they've just fallen ever so short. 705 people is not going to solve the problem in Minnesota, where you've had a massive cultural shift. So I want to play this little video of this lady. This is more like a mindset problem. The sympathetic nature of the CNN interview and the way that this lady shares what her value systems are. Gone are the days when people came to this country and were so grateful that they were living in America that they wanted to become American. There is a subculture of people that come here and they are irritated with us. They are feeling entitled to the things that our country offers to those who are actually citizens. And their belief is that America, because America has actually floated this out there, owes them something. I don't know where it comes from, that sense of entitlement, but this woman seems to embody it, and she's showing off some bullet holes because of her weird entitled attitude to protect people from federal law enforcement doing the actual work, which I think was really important and didn't get done. Here's a little taste of this gal being interviewed by CNN, and again, very sympathetic.
Can I show them?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was shot in my arm right here, and then I went through my tricep, and then it grazed the side of my chest.
Reminders of what could have been Marimar Martinez's last day. October 4th, the Department of Homeland Security claimed she rammed a Border Patrol agent's vehicle in Chicago with her car before that agent got out and shot her multiple times. She says she was on her way to donate clothes until she saw what appeared to be federal agents, already becoming a familiar sight in Chicago's neighborhoods.
So I started beeping my horn. As a Mexican-American, first-generation USA citizen, I felt it was my responsibility to let my neighborhood know that ICE agents were near.
They turned out to be Border Patrol.
So I just got next to them, and I was like, get out of here, and I was just like honking.
That's when she says they sideswiped her, contradicting Border Patrol's narrative.
They immediately stopped. I gotta go somewhere safe. I went to my furthest left, make sure that I wasn't gonna hit them. As I was passing them, they started shooting at me through the side.
The agent got out of his vehicle and shot Martinez 5 times.
It feels like it's still top of mind for you, right?
It's painful. Like, just to talk about it, it's like, think about it, just me remembering what happened that day. It's traumatic, honestly.
She was charged with forcibly assaulting and resisting or impeding a border agent and labeled a domestic terrorist by the Department of Homeland Security. And then, over a month later, in what became a critical court hearing, the agent who shot her, Charles Exum, testified the collision was more of a hit, not rammed. Then,
these text messages came out where he appeared to be bragging about shooting you. Read it, 5 shots, 7 holes, put that in your book, boys. You were sitting right there.
What type of agent brags about it? This is what the administration has out in the street.
For 15 years, I was a federal prosecutor. I worked every day with FBI, DEA, DHS. I have never come across an agent like that, and it's something that's embarrassing to me as a former federal prosecutor.
Thursday night, there was suddenly a major shift. The case was dropped, and at the request of the prosecution. Despite the case being dismissed, DHS stuck to their original accusations.
So this is actually really bad. It's a really bad look for the government, because what you had is a couple of things that you're not supposed to do. Number one, anything that you put in writing is discoverable, and people are supposed to understand that. So federal law enforcement should do better. Also, this woman is not a very sympathetic figure to many of us. She sounds like she's drunk. She's got a slur, which sounds like just that lazy sort of Hispanic talking thing. I don't know where it comes from, but having lived in California and having traveled around the world, like in the United States, you can hear people that have this and they are from here, but they don't sound like you and me, and they don't sound like they've committed to be able to speak. Anyway, all of that is not sympathetic. She sounds ignorant to me. She sounds like the kind of person who says dumb things like, I felt like as a first generation Mexican American that I'm supposed to warn people who are illegally in this country. You know, maybe someone who doesn't pay enough taxes to understand what it costs to do any of this stuff. But everything else about this, the law enforcement end of it, it's not good. 5 shots, 7 holes. Yeah, I get it. Guys have to blow off steam. That should be done in person and not over text message. And maybe that is the piece that I think is also really relevant. We're committing so many things into writing these days, when that's not the way that human beings dealt with it. Historically, guys would get together, they'd have a drink, they'd blow off steam, they'd be upset. Like, it's not necessarily a great feeling that you fired a bunch of rounds into some car or that you got rammed. If you're working your job and out of nowhere, like some lady is like, harassing you, if you've done something that's pretty stressful, I do think that you're entitled to a little bit of a steam blow off. Maybe not on a government phone text message with a bunch of the guys that are going to be called to testify in that case. Maybe that's not the best way to go about doing this. So this lack of discretion is a problem. I'm going to read you from the CNN story here. Even with a federal indictment hanging over her head, claiming she could be a threat to law enforcement, Marimar Martinez was confident she could eventually prove her innocence. I know the truth, she says. I know what really happened that day. And after an extraordinary reversal by federal prosecutors, one of the most high-profile cases connected to the Operation Midway Blitz in Chicago, a judge dismissed the charges Thursday against Martinez, who's a U.S. citizen accused of ramming a vehicle owned by Customs and Border Protection agent, or was operated by a CBP agent in Chicago before he shot her several times. The ruling came down after she repeatedly raised concerns about the handling of the investigation. Obviously, that was her attorneys doing that. She's not very smart, from what I can tell, including the revelation that the vehicle the Border Patrol agent was moved 1,000 miles away after the incident, and text message showed the agent apparently was bragging about the shooting. All of it is a bad look. All of this stuff is like, good idea, not a problem that you're there, but there's a way to go about things properly, and there's a failure. And this one is one of those failures. It's like so many other things in law enforcement. You're asked to bear a lot of burdens. You have to be smart about the way that you let off steam in that scenario. It's the same thing for firefighters. It's the same thing for people who work in emergency rooms. This lady will probably now have a case to be able to sue. And so the former federal prosecutor turned defense attorney, which this is what people do. If you guys don't know how the federal system works, a lot of guys will go and get, or a lot of guys and girls will go get experience working the federal system as a federal prosecutor. They'll rack up a bunch of wins. They'll do the thing that federal prosecutors do, which is basically get like a 90+% either plea out or conviction rate. And then they turn around and then they go to a law firm and they're able to use that in the defense side. And it's very lucrative because they know how the system works and they can push back. Fine, great. How did this woman afford a decent attorney? That is one of those questions I have a lot of it's not answered here. How did she afford somebody who used to work in the United States Attorney's Office that's a capable federal prosecutor? A lot of these things seems like they're being paid and getting paid out by the federal government. What are the odds that this woman gets a better payout, having done something dangerous, probably illegal, and she's in better shape at the end of it than guys who were federal agents that were whistleblowers that went for 14 months, went for 1,000 or 1,100 days without a paycheck? I think it's really high. I think it's high because we're living in kind of a dumb time. We're living in this moment where suing the government when you are a fake aggrieved party is actually a really good way to get rich. And that seems problematic. That seems like not what we really voted for. And these are unforced errors. I see this as being the same kind of problem. You're seeing on the screen right now is John Thune. He's the majority leader in the Senate. And the House unanimously voted to strip the Senate phone investigations provision from their funding bill. We talked about this, I think, last week a little bit too, but yet another one of those opportunities where, you know what, maybe I'm not a good actor, but I've been able to get some public sentiment behind me, and so I can be the aggrieved party. And so then you get guys like Lindsey Graham saying, I want to sue the federal government for a thing the federal government is allowed to do. The end of the day, the officer doesn't actually have to have a 100% understanding that this woman was doing something. He has to have a reasonable belief that he can use that deadly force policy. The way that you undermine that is you send a bunch of text messages that undermine your statement of what justified what you were doing. And it sounds like they did that. So if we're getting in people, if we're trying to recruit people, and this is something I've been told that the Trump administration has been failing at, they're bringing in as many people as they can off the streets. A lot of these people are really excited to be Border Patrol or do the work of ERO, enforcement and removal operations. And they're not getting the professionalism and the understanding of how to get it done. They're not actually getting these guys trained. So maybe they're showing up and doing something dangerous, or maybe they've been caged for so long under the last administration and not allowed to do their jobs that they're acting out and they're acting inappropriately. And none of that actually suits the thing that needs to be done, which is that we have hundreds of thousands of dangerous and violent people that need to be removed. And we have millions of people that are suckling at the teat of this country. And they're destroying our capabilities as a country for people who just want to thrive. I found this, and these are not a one-to-one thing, but the kind of folks that don't have compatible American values, which I thought was the whole idea, make America great again, the MAGA thing. I thought it was that people would actually understand that you are responsible for you and that personal responsibility, it actually has to come from some principles, the make America great again thing. It's not government solutions. Unfortunately, the Republicans seem to do just that. They try to go and they say, all of this big government is the problem and all these Democrat policies were bad. Our policies are better. It's not that we're going to have less government. It's going to be the same amount of government, but we're going to run it. And so my thesis continues to be the same. It doesn't matter whether you have an issue with one of the agencies that I used to work for or an agency that we just look out there and see that is not operating in good faith. Like every single time, they all have the same problem. There's too much of it. And rather than go the principled route, what they do is, how can our team control the ball right now? But if anybody's ever seen a football game, you turn over the ball at some point in time. And I don't know whether it'll be in 2028 or whether it'll be in the midterms in 2026. But at some point, quote unquote, our team is not going to have the ball and they're going to go back to doing the other thing. And the animal will be the same size, but it'll just be turned back on whoever shouldn't be. The only way that you fix these problems is less. And so it's kind of interesting to me sitting in church on Sunday and listening to our parish priest, who's an immigrant, who's from Vietnam. And he's talking about the Feast of Christ the King and the time when it was brought forward in 1925, I think, if memory serves. They created that feast day. The same problems were there. It was a focus on totalitarian and authoritarian type governments. It was a focus on secularism. It was a focus on things that were not principled. This is not a new problem. Like none of us has showed up and woke up one day and went like, it was Barack Obama. He's the one who did it. It was Hillary Clinton. He's the one who did it. And on the other side, it wasn't like George Bush created the problem or Donald Trump or Joe Biden. None of these people created this problem. It's a 100-plus-year-old problem minimum. And it might just be the problem of human beings are looking for an out and they're wondering, is there a way that I don't have to take personal responsibility? Can I get away with not taking responsibility for actions? Can I let someone else deal with it? I was quizzing my daughter on the way home from sitting at Mass, and I was asking her about the readings. The gospel reading is the story of Christ on the cross with the two thieves that are hung on either side of him. And of course, one of them says, aren't you the Christ? Can't you save us? Why don't you take care of us? That is a very human reaction. That is the same reaction that anybody that thinks government is the answer. Hey, you're the government, right? You're the godverment. Don't we hear that on the left all the time? That's who they put their faith in. And all the way across the aisle as well. There's plenty of people on the right that have the same problem. You're the government. Why don't you fix this problem and save us? And the other guy says is that we're just getting what we deserve. And so he asks for mercy instead of, he doesn't have that entitled attitude. Just interesting that sometimes that the liturgical readings will line up with a thing that I can see both in our news cycle and the way that our country is dealing with it. We have a problem of our own making, but it's also a problem that predates us. You tell me that this makes any sense in a country that is as wealthy as ours and has values that we sort of espouse out loud, but we don't tend to live. We look at this guy and we go, okay, this is the low-hanging fruit that should have been fixed. This is a story about a guy getting SNAP benefits. So put aside the woman who gets shot doing something that is dangerous and illegal. Even if she's just out there trying to obstruct the federal investigation, it's dangerous and illegal. Getting shot, another question. Imagine the sense of entitlement that this guy has. He's 38. He's able-bodied. He is not going to school. He doesn't have any children to support. He has, like, as far as I can tell, like no handicaps that should stop him from being able to thrive in America. And he thinks that we should all pay him and he needs food stamps. People on both sides of the aisle want government to solve their problem. This guy may be the great example of something that we can all look at and go, oh, this is terrible. But how many people want the government to come and fix the problems about the jobs market or the cost of things? They want government intervention in ways that it's so clearly the actual problem. Or as my buddy Steve Friend says, government creates the problem so that government can solve the problem. This will get you a little bit frustrated and outraged right now, especially in a climate where jobs are tight, money is going to be tight, and we're going into the holidays, which is when everybody sees family and realizes that everybody might be struggling in a similar way.
That's some bull.
Nelson Scott is on the verge of losing access to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. He is 38, not disabled, doesn't have any kids, doesn't go to school, and doesn't have a job. Those are just some of the reasons he is no longer eligible for SNAP benefits.
How much did SNAP help you?
It helped me a lot. I get $292 a month.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture crackdown is led by President Trump, who signed the One Big Beautiful Bill into law in July. The government shutdown stalled the November 1st deadline for implementation. However, these changes are still coming up.
We help
Signe Anderson is a senior director of nutrition advocacy with the Tennessee Justice Center.
Because of rules like this, we can see individuals that are going to be forced to skip meals.
She points out senior citizens and children between the age of 15 and 18 will be most impacted. Rick Williams is a conservative political analyst.
A 15 or 16-year-old can take care of themselves at home while you go work. There's no reason you can't be working. There are plenty of jobs out there.
Scott tells me, as a convicted felon, getting a job isn't easy.
I will get one if y'all give me one. Y'all be felony friendly and hire us.
The Tennessee
Interesting. That was something about the Tennessee Justice Center. There's a senior director of nutritional services or whatever the hell that lady's position was. Somebody will have to rewind the tape and watch that one. How is that a job? And then you get to the end and you realize, oh, what's the problem? It was a felony conviction. It was a bad decision of some kind. You did something and now you have a responsibility for something, but you think that the people should pay you SNAP. As a 38-year-old man with no job and no real problems, that might be unfair. I've actually got another sort of story that goes along with this stuff. I keep seeing these, like, we see all of the puzzle pieces are there, and yet it seems like government is actually the piece that's in the middle that's stopping the solution. The solution should be the free market, one would think. I did like that guy who was saying, kids can take care of themselves at 16, 17 years old. That seems true. Go get a job. That seems true. Well, what if they won't hire you? Or what if the job is actually preferable to give to, like, slave labor, like the lady in Chicago was trying to defend? See if we can make that leap in 1 second here. Before we do, let's talk about my friends over at Silent. This is just like straight, regular product. It solves a problem, and then maybe you want to go ahead and buy it as a solution. My friends at Silent make a solution to government tracking, big tech, corporate data brokers, cyber criminals, the physical end of it. Yeah, you can stop it online with our other folks, but maybe you just want to put your phone in a bag and have it not give off any signals whatsoever. cellular, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, RFID, near field communication. You want to block all that stuff. You want to just have a moment of silence, especially during the holidays. It's a great way to remember that. Check out this. It's slnt.com/KYLE. The website again is silent with no vowels, slnt.com/Kyle. They've got all kinds of good stuff on there. Maybe you're someone who travels and you need something waterproof. That's actually a really good thing. And you don't know you need it until you step out into pouring rain and you've got a laptop that's very expensive and you got your phone and your tablet and all the other kind of stuff that you're using for work and you have it stuffed in a waterproof bag so you don't have to worry about it. And you also know that no one's going to hack it while you're in the airport. More about the airport problem in a second. Yeah, I've used this bag. I've used all the bags I have. I've got little sleeves like this one here, which holds onto my cell phone. I've got some backpacks that are waterproof. I've got some that are not. Their stuff is all very well designed. It all works, which is like more than I could say for a lot of the cheap Chinesium stuff you find. Check them out. Save 15% with my name. It's slnt.com/KYLE for silent Faraday sleeves and products, getting off the grid, keeping you silent, invisible to the outside world. It also just gives you like peace of mind, which is really a nice feeling. We're gonna try to thread the needle. What if there was a place where there were jobs for a guy like that, able-bodied 38-year-old, can't catch a break? But what if you had to go somewhere for it? One of the things that used to really impact me listening to Ben Shapiro when I was working on the job as an FBI agent, I would sit in my surveillance vehicle and I would listen to podcasts and so on, and I would get that information and I would kind of make sense of it. And I would see, is the argument successful? One of the arguments that used to be made very frequently before Ben Shapiro seemed like he was 100% pro-vax and pro-Israel stuff was that he honed in on this idea that America was unique in so much as it was a land of opportunity, but it wasn't a land of guarantees. It was a place where you were guaranteed a shot at the ride, but no one told you how the ride would end. And a lot of people had really bad and unfavorable outcomes. Generations of people died in filth and squalor trying to lift their children and the next generation up. Right? How many people think that they are entitled to live in the place where they are, to take on no additional burdens or hardship, to gamble nothing, to risk nothing, and then that they're supposed to be successful simply because they live in this country and this country owes it to them? Why do they think that? I was doing kind of a little retrospective because of the last couple of Thanksgivings. We've spent a Thanksgiving in Virginia, one in New Mexico, one in Arizona, and then a couple now here in Texas. And my children, my oldest child is 8 years old. And she's lived in at least 5 different houses. Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4. She's lived in 6 houses and she's 8 years old. Because we had some tough times come upon us, like many of you have experienced. Like things did not go the way that I would have planned it. I would not have expected it. If God had asked me like, hey, what's your plan? How should I carry it out for you? It would not be what happened. I promise you that. I wouldn't have gone and chosen that for myself or for my family. And yet, that's what happened. That's the way that it worked out. That's how we stayed together as a family. That's how we were able to survive. Why are people not picking up and going to where the opportunity might be? And is this opportunity something that would save a guy like a 38-year-old man with no kids who's got nothing tying him down, who's a felon? So he might need a little bit more grace. He might not have a ton of skills. Can he go out and work this job? Or do we just have to have slave labor? Do we have to just import illegal aliens who aren't from this country to do this work? I'm hearing from these people are business owners. And these are the kind of people that it seems like Donald Trump has been trying to defend. I don't get it. Why do these people get a special pass to be able to keep illegals in our country? And if that means that the cost has to go up on certain things, then so be it. That means we are artificially solving problems with slave labor. More on that in a second, because all my friends keep sending me these messages about the fall of the Roman Republic and a late stage republic and the end of the empire and the way that America is really, like all of us around us have this sense. If you guys start figuring out why Rome fell, it's so obvious how many of those things actually apply to the current American situation. It's almost like we had historical analogs to look at this. And one of these crazy things is we want cheap slave labor. It turns out a reliance on slave labor was one of the reasons the Roman Republic fell. It's the reason why the empire didn't survive. Republic, empire, and then dust. Watch this. You tell me if this makes you feel sympathetic for the business owners.
Why not just hire people from here?
Yeah, so we would love to hire people from here. The reality is we can't find the numbers of people here. We're in a rural area, number one. Number two, this is hard work. It is difficult work. And there are lots of people that are not willing to do it.
There is a clear directive from the administration that they want mass deportation. That is impacting then our labor force. Is that what I'm understanding?
It's absolutely impacting the labor force, and the president said so himself. He said the aggressive raids are hurting our farmers. Somewhere between 50 and 60% of our farm labor workforce is undocumented immigrants. If we were to deport them all overnight, then that's 60% of the workforce. That means higher prices for them at the grocery store.
So it's going to cost us more to hire people who are supposed to be working in this country. And instead, what we'd rather do is something that is basically breaking federal employment law and allowing undocumented, AKA illegal aliens, to do work. Does that make any sense to anybody? There's two things that are going on there. He said we're in a rural area, so we don't have the labor force available to us. So that means people are not going to where that work is. And then he just said it was really hard work. So Americans apparently won't do hard work. That seems like the same argument that I heard Donald Trump making. Americans aren't smart enough to be building batteries or manufacturing chips. And that's why we have to import the labor market. So we're going to go to a short-term solution, which is that we're going to have people that don't have a right to be here, instead of the long-term correction against a bigger problem. It just seems like the exact opposite of what I heard Donald Trump making the argument. If you're going to make America great again, if you're going to do things like you're going to get rid of the IRS, remember how he said that? He was going to get rid of the IRS and they were going to fund everything through tariffs. Do you know the only way that would work was having less government? I thought that was actually built into the coin there, like built into the plan rather. If you're going to start funding everything based on tariff revenue, which is a consumption tax on us, like whatever we buy from overseas, we're going to get hit with higher cost because it was made in a non-domestic way. Okay, fine. You're going to charge us more money. We're going to fund our government through things that we buy. People who don't buy things don't have to worry about that. Great. But that means that there needs to be less government, right? I did this little quick search, literally sitting down, having my cup of coffee. You type in on the Google machine, why did the Roman Empire fall? And it gives you the funniest little response. This is AI. So this is a generation of things from Wikipedia, from historical documents, from people that are academics and so on and so forth. There's a whole slew of things that it analyzed. I read through all the stuff to see what it was pulling from. And it's more or less accurate. This is the simple solution. The Roman Empire its fall was a complex process that involved a combination of internal and external factors. Okay, sure. Key reasons included internal conflict and political instability, economic problems like a trade imbalance and inflation. How many of these sound familiar? Social problems like population in decline, external pressures like threat of invasion from groups like the Hun and the Germanic tribes. I look at that as maybe a border failure as well. All of these things are the same problems that we've had in this here country. And so if somebody was going to make America great again, wouldn't you go and address the underlying problems? Wouldn't that be the way you do it? Wouldn't you try to shore up your political base and see which people were running on principle and say, okay, this is the principles that we're behind? Wouldn't you try to root out corruption? One of the other issues they had was a thing called the Praetorian Guard, which was killing off politicians and installing politicians. This is the real sort of thing that I am most concerned about with the January 6th story. And there's a reason why my buddy Steve Baker continues to refer to the Capitol Police as a Praetorian Guard. Are they as overt as the Roman Praetorian Guard? No, because there's an internet, because there's media. At the same time, one of the other things that they had a problem was a reliance on slave labor in the Roman Empire. And isn't that exactly what we've done with these sort of rural communities that are relying on illegal aliens? You've changed all of the dynamics. You've changed the expectation on the people that come here. What you didn't do was raise their standard of living. What you did was you lowered our standard of living, which we keep talking about. And it seems so obvious to us. It's just frustrating. It's frustrating to see it. because I don't believe with them when they say things like, oh, well, it's just, this is just the way it has to be. The system, what it means is that nobody's willing to bite the bullet and actually take on the actual hard work. I thought that was the claim that Trump made in his appeal. After getting shot, you'd think a guy who got shot was ready to do something really, really hard. Like, you've already faced down death. What could be harder than that? You couldn't do it quickly. You can't wave a magic wand. What you come in and you tell people is that we're going to have some austerity. Things are going to be hard for a little while. You're not going to like it. You're going to have to remember that we talked about this and this is what you voted for. And what you voted for was a difficult path ahead that results in something better. You know, like the most American thing there is. We all get together. We all agree that things right now are bad, that the path is visible but difficult, rocky, and uncomfortable. And we're all going to do it anyway. When I was a kid, we played a video game called Oregon Trail. How many of you guys remember that, right? And people died along the way. It was a video game. It was just teaching you kind of the hardship that was, you'd start with a family of 7, and you'd arrive with a family of 4. Because your kids or your wife on the video screen died along the way. Why did they do this? Well, in the video game, it's because you wanted to shoot squirrels with a rifle if you were me and you were just like a kid. But the real path is people saw an opportunity and they realized that they could change their fate if they were willing to go and do really, really hard work. Incredibly dangerous. They'd put it out there. I thought that was kind of what was being sold with the MAGA movement. And then you find out that there are basically 2 parts of the MAGA movement. And that's what today kind of reminded me. Over the weekend, we found out that a bunch of these quote unquote MAGA influencer types, they're not real. They're fake. I've got a whole slew of them here on my screen. I'm going to read you guys some of them. I'm not going to show all their accounts, mostly because I don't really like their accounts. And I don't want to be part of that. Let me read you some of the accounts that are basically capitalizing on this concept of you're a cheerleader for something. Ivanka Trump News. Hundreds of thousands of followers, based in Nigeria. Names changed 11 times. Simply just faking it the whole time. Whatever was interesting or popular results in thousands of dollars of income per pay period. And X pays out every 2 weeks. You get millions of impressions, you get paid out. How do you do that? You tell people bullshit that they like to hear. The Ivanka Trump News handle was tweeting out things like, this is what I voted for. Would you change your vote? And then you realize, oh, they didn't vote at all. They're in Nigeria. How about another one? Eric Trump fan number 1, like 131,000 followers, based in Eastern Europe, non-EU country. Fan Eric Trump is what it goes by when you see it. How about MAGA Nation X, another couple 100,000 followers, changed usernames 5 times, also based in Eastern Europe. Trump Lover, Superata 300, based in India. Another Nigerian account, the Ultra MAGA Trump 2028 accounts. How about Donald Trump, the mirroring site that allows you on X to see Trump's posts on Truth Social. It's called Trump Truth on X. Where's it from? Australia. It's all fake. It's completely astroturfed. The American Voice, based in South Asia, which is Pakistan. It's a euphemism for Pakistan. I went looking at all these things and I realized this is all made up. It's completely astroturfed to the point where there is a lot of money in making people feel good about fake things. And how many times do we see that in our churches as well? People sell you like a prosperity gospel. They go out there and tell you that this is how it's supposed to be. All you got to do is support me and feel good about it. If I can make you feel good, is that worth something to you? So people follow it. That's not very American. That's not a very American value. American value is this is going to suck. We're going to go through hell together. And at the end of it, it might not even be worth it for us. It's going to be worth it for the next generation. Americans are people of hope that don't necessarily even expect to be able to reap the rewards of the hard work they did. That's the incredible thing about this country. That's why this country has always been so special. People were willing to sacrifice everything to push somebody else up from the next generation so that their kids would have a better future. But what about when your kids are not having a future at all because you have no kids? What about when your birth rates are destroyed because you've had this entire secular push to say that children are actually inconvenient to your self-serving happiness? I thought America actually used to be about something really different. So when I heard Make America Great Again, I was like, oh, we're going to return to the time when someone's going to put everything in and on the line so that the next generation gets to experience the value of that. And they're going to do the same for theirs and so on. And I guess what it meant was two different things. One, I just want to feel good and be part of a winning team. That was part of the MAGA thing. And the other piece of it was whatever Donald Trump says is good, even if it's dumb, even if it's really, really not helpful, even if it's not making it better. And it doesn't mean that the alternative was better either. Clearly not. But when you're losing people like Alex Jones and you're seeing some of the bad decision making that goes forward with these folks, it's really hard to get behind it. This is Donald Trump talking over the weekend about Marjorie Taylor Greene, someone who I think was like all on the line. I wasn't a big fan of Marjorie Taylor Greene, but I do know that she was a big Donald Trump supporter. If you take your people that are backing you and you're willing to crap on them, like, who are you? I thought Donald Trump was the guy that was all about loyalty. And apparently all of that goes away the minute we start talking about Epstein files. And this is what this was all over about. Standing a line on something that I thought we all kind of agreed was like, yeah, elite pedophiles aren't supposed to get away with things. And if somebody was involved in it, we should hear more about it. That was the fallout. And MTG put out her statement. She's going to resign at the beginning of January next year. She's over. Here's Donald Trump being asked questions about that before he gets on a helicopter. Excuse the sound.
Are you willing to forgive Congresswoman Taylor Greene?
Forgive for what? No, I just disagreed with her philosophy. She started backing perhaps the worst Republican congressman in our history, just stupid person named Massey. And I said, go your own way. And once I left her, she resigned because she would never have survived a primary. But I think she's a nice person. Okay, thank you.
She would have never survived a primary? She was multiple times reelected. She had great name recognition. She probably would have, but also she says in her little resignation that she's seen it. She's seen what it looks like, says it's junk. There's no changing it. Certainly not the way that they're doing it. I think a lot of us kind of have that sort of instinct. That doesn't mean that the problem that they identified was not real, and it clearly is real. Is real. You guys, that was fun. All right, give me 1 second. Let's go ahead and plug my friends over at Patriot Coolers. Guys, you can support the program. You can support a good company. This is folks that have supported us since the beginning. Literally, since we started doing the podcast out here, Patriot Coolers has been our sponsor. The website is patriotcoolers.com. If you scroll down the link in the show description, you'll find the link to the Suspendables collection, which is some of our sort of branded type merch that they sell. You can get 10% off by using my name at checkout. KYLE will save you 10%. These are great stuff as far as gifts go. They're really easy to find, one for anybody. My family is full of them now at this point. Like my parents have them. We have them. All the kids are starting to get water bottles that they can keep track of. We use the hard-sided coolers on a regular basis. So if you are sitting there thinking, as you're wandering around wondering like, well, what do I get this gift? I always do this too. And I always have a great idea and then I forget whenever it comes to gift giving times. This is one of those ones that's always like an evergreen. It's easy to do. So as you're thinking about it, patriotcoolers.com, promo code KYLE. Put them on your list of things as you are trying to find solutions that are not gender specific and will always be useful and last for quite a long time. You won't be sad about their products. I don't think anybody has bought one of these things and said, hey, why? They always send me pictures and they're really proud of them. When you get them in real life, they actually looked better than you thought they would, even on the website, which is pretty nice. That's not the case for most things that you buy. Let's do this one real quick. One of the things that he said correctly, this is not Trump bashing time. This is just noting that the solution is not meeting the level of the problem. And it will not if he continues to do that. If he's going to focus on attacking a Tom Massey and he's going to support a Lindsey Graham, they put this out over the weekend. Donald Trump is ending deportation protections for Somalis in Minnesota. Like that sounds like something we can all get behind. The problem is that solution is not nearly the solution for the actual nature of the problem. There's like 100,000 Somalis in Minnesota right now. The number's somewhere a little bit less than that. It might be in the 90s. The temporary protected status for people who have come here as like refugee types, it only affects 705 total people. It's almost none. There are almost no people that are affected by this order. So it's one of those things. It's a classic sort of problem with the Trump issue. They sound really good right up until you look at the details. Like, we're going to pay for everything by tariffs. And then when they mean is that we're actually going to give you a $2,000 tariff rebate, which is actually going to just cause more inflationary problems. More on that in a second. Let's first kind of hit this bizarre moment where this is the problem. When our actual American policies have now bent not to like accommodate and allow immigrants into this country and say, welcome to the fold and bring what you have. And now you could be part of the American experience. No, we are going to actually cater to you to the point where this guy is the chief of police in, I think, Minneapolis. And he is apologizing if somebody misunderstood him when they were actually doing the job that he's elected or that he's appointed to do, which is enforce law. Listen to this like bizarre translator moment. I'm going to be on the screen here. So you guys are going to hear some Somali translators talking so that this dude who sounds like he's either from like Boston or New York came in to be a chief of police is essentially apologizing to a group of folks that do not share American values. It's completely backwards from what we would expect.
Community hadda caruurteena inaan garab istaagno chiefkana waa u baahannahay annagana waa isku baahannahay
ashaano kamid ah odayaasha community-ga Soomaaliyeed iyo waalidiinta magaaladan degan ilmana ku koriyay.
The Somali community here in Minneapolis has been welcoming and has shown love towards me, and I appreciate it. Over the last 3 years, we have been working together to try and address some of the real serious problems that we have in our community. We have to be honest at times with the problems that we're having in our community, and we need our community to help us fix those problems together because it's real and it's serious. At the same time, if people have taken anything that I have said out of context in a way that's caused harm, I apologize and I'm sorry for that because that's not my intention at all.
What is that? I apologize if I hurt your feelings. This is the chief of police. This is like a group of people that represent a significant amount of problems in that area. So much so that they need to have their own police officers who understand their culture because we have not had assimilation. So when the chief of police is apologizing to a group that is harboring criminal behavior and activity and does not fit into the American vision, and they're not. Like, welcome to America. Speak English. Real straightforward. You're seeing it on the screen. There's a bunch of people waving American flags. Okay, fine. Guess what? There's something that comes along with that. It's like buying into our vision. That's what I would have thought the MAGA movement was about, was getting people like this to join us and say, okay, look, fine. People have always come to this country with other things. Bring your culture, bring your costume, bring your cuisine. Keep your language in your house. Keep your non-American value system away from us. Instead, what we've done is we've adapted to allow it to the point where this guy is talking about how they needed Somali police officers who understood the culture. Why? Why do we need to understand it? You are now in America. Your culture in your little cultural enclaves is not necessarily relevant. There's always been this headbutt. But for the first time, I think Americans are actually rolling over and getting steamrolled by these people, as opposed to the alternative, which is that there was always a clash. People came in and tried to keep whatever it is that they used to do in the old country. And they said, no, this is not the old country. This is how it's supposed to work here. You have to basically be part of it or you need to be deported. And of course, when people say, well, Trump's ending the deportation or the protections for deportations, it's not going to be enough. Like so many other things. Sounds good. In practice, it's almost nothing. Listen to these guys. This language, by the way, is really ugly. It's one of the uglier languages to listen to. It reminds me of that Eddie Murphy clip we played last week.
markaan haddaan askarnahay Soomaaliyeed ininka inii shaqeynaa habeenii maalmo ininka inii taagannahay fahanteen horta sida ogtihiinba wadankan anaga qaxootiyan imaanay.
This is one of those moments where if you're not on Spotify, you're missing out. If you're watching on the visual, obviously you can read the subtitles, but these are all subtitles, and I think the subtitles are there. I'm not going to read them out loud. Encourage you to have an opportunity to switch over. Again, great reason to go to KyleSerafinshow.com. If you're in an audio only, you're missing out on reading the subtitles here, which it'd be hard to read along with.
Askar Soomaaliya ma jiri jirin. Marka hadda anaga markii la haygareeyay waxay noqotay inaan dadkeena u shaqeyno. Dadkii dhaqankii ma fahmeynaa, luqadii ma fahmeynaa, culture-kii ma fahmeynaa. Marka qofka kale mataqaana ajnabiga abadaanka iyo anaga waa kala duwanahay because qofkii gaabkii waxa we build that bridge kaas. Ma fahantay? Marka insha Allah waa mahadsantiin again ogaada askari kasta oo Soomaaliya dalka iyo dawladda.
He says from every Somali police officer, he's wearing a sheriff's deputy outfit. He's talking on Somali TV. in the United States and talking to two men who were like following along with whatever that was. He says, whether you're in the homeland or abroad, we work for you. And he means Somalians. That's not a thing that is allowed in this country. We're in a real bad spot if that's the thing. That is not going to make America great again. And unfortunately, what you've seen is that a bunch of the politicians have rolled over and just said, yeah, that's what we're all about. We are, in fact, about that in this country. We do want to go out there and push this forward. We're happy to accommodate these folks. I got a Tim Walz clip here. I think I'll just play that in a second. Let me see if I can grab it real quick. There you go. He says that Minnesota is a better place because we've brought this in. Minnesota? Hold on a second, though. Really? Like, Minnesota is a better place because we have people from a country that is barely even a country? That's really hard to swallow for me. My grandmother was from Minnesota. My dad grew up in Wisconsin. Like, it is about the most opposite of what I would think Somalis would add value to. And yet, here's the guy that was running for vice president. So I can differentiate that there's a big difference between if this guy was vice president and these terrible ideas had made it towards the White House. But still, we're such a shadow of what we were promised. I think it's reasonable to be upset about it.
And I just think we all need to acknowledge it every single time we get the opportunity to gather. Minnesota is a better place because Somalians chose to live here. We are stronger because of it. And again, as often as we can echo that, and as often as we can make sure our actions are reflecting that, and often as we can seed that entrepreneurial spirit and that sense of caring for our children, we will see that continue to go up. And let's be very clear. If Somali children are doing well, other children are doing well. That's what we know. So I want to just say thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to spend some time. But again, I will reiterate and understand very clearly what Nimco said is it's not good enough to show up just around election time. It's not good enough to just have a set of proposals. We need to be measuring results and seeing them in action in our communities. And I will go back and end where the imam was. These are some of the most difficult times. So let's make sure that those difficult times forced us into action to make them some of the best times that follow it. So Imam, thank you for that.
But then he does some weird chest thing, or he grabs his chest, does his spastic sort of Tim Walz thing. That guy was running for vice president of the United States. It's no wonder that a woman who's in Chicago, who's a first-generation Mexican-American, doesn't feel like her loyalty is to America or to the laws of this country. She thinks it's to other people who came here, even if they came here illegally. She's a citizen, they're not, and yet she somehow feels beholden. And why wouldn't she? When someone like a Tim Walz, who served in the military, who holds a high position in state government, that guy's over there falling all over himself for what? Like a constituency that should almost have no say. It's so bizarre. When I was wearing a Crusader pin on my jacket when I went to Mass this Sunday, and I got it from Garrett O'Boyle. If you guys want to find him, it's the-Suspendables shop, the-suspendables.com. There were people who wanted them. Some of you guys have seen them on. I've worn them on Alex Jones. I listened to Alex Jones say we need a crusade because we've got this problem. Our culture is being conquered by a foreign value system. It's not American, the value system. And so the crusade may be armed, or maybe it won't be. I don't know. It's definitely a cultural crusade right now. And we're losing, most clearly, if you see those kind of clowns out there. So this lady comes up to me and she was like, oh, what is that cross? And I said, it's like a Crusader's cross. And she said, well, is it for the Knights of Columbus? I said, no, it's not. It's just a reminder that we are in a spiritual war right now. We are in a cultural battle to maintain a Christian vision in this nation. And she's like, oh, well, thank you for wearing it. Like, I don't think you get it, lady. It has to be backed with something. It has to be backed with actions. And it's currently not. It's currently backed with people rolling over. So I saw this story, which was the big story of last week. A bunch of Democrats went out and claimed that there was seditious, or that Donald Trump was giving illegal orders. And the question was, what was it? What were the illegal orders? And their answers were, we don't know. I've actually got a couple of clips because that's been ongoing. That was played over the weekend too. That was played out. What are these illegal orders? Nobody knows. The funny thing is that no matter what Donald Trump did, I think we all actually remember this. No matter what he did, he was going to be labeled a fascist and a dictator, an authoritarian and orange Hitler and all the other stuff, right? So if you're already going to be hated by one group of people, why not just do the thing that you said you were going to do as aggressively as humanly possible? Shouldn't you just do that? Shouldn't you not worry about people saying wild stuff? You just know that it's like, damn the torpedoes. This is going to be rough. We're going on the Oregon Trail. We might lose some people along the way. I'm not going to be the most loved person. I'm going to be the person that saves the problem. Like, the people who are the most loved as politicians are not the people that do the great things that needed to be done, the hard things for that time. It's way easier to be liked and just go out and smile and not actually deal with this craziness. Here's Maggie Goulander. I've just dropped the D because her name's Goodlander. She's talking about the things that Trump did. I would suggest to you that people that are holding allegiance to non-U.S. interests, particularly people that are politicians doing such things, they're really the problem. It's not these goofy lawmakers who went out and made a stupid video talking about hypothetically if there was an illegal order. The reason we know that they don't matter is because we already lived through Biden's presidency when there was, in fact, an illegal mandate. It went down on businesses through OSHA and it was knocked down. It went down on the military and it went down on the civilian federal service, and it got rid of anybody who didn't want to get the COVID shots. We already know what it looked like to see that nobody was willing to stop an illegal order coming their way. It happened in my agency. It happened in many of your jobs. We already know what that looks like. These people were not there for us then. So I know that they're full of crap. But the fact that this is even something that Trump is even considering or worried about when he's not punching through the other end of it, knowing that he's going to be yelled at now, and theoretically would have had the possibility of like history thinking favorably, like a man sort of handled the ugliness of the time. And he didn't do it. Instead, we're hearing excuses for why we need to have illegals and the Americans can't do farm work and we need more H-1B visas and 600,000 Chinese students prop up our university system. Imagine if he just lived up to the thing that they claim that he does and he would actually be the winner. And instead, he's half-assing it. Anyway, here's MS Now, not MSNBC, asking the simple question of like, what is the illegal order? What are they?
What illegal orders are you urging troops to refuse, and what do you hope they take away from your message?
Alex, we love this country. We love our Constitution. It is our job as lawmakers, and especially in this moment, to be clear morally, to be clear legally, and simply and clearly stating what the law says, what the Uniform Code of Military Justice says. It's not a crime. It is not treason. It is not sedition. It is our job.
No answer.
It does imply that the president is having illegal orders, which you have not seen.
I think for us, it was just a statement widely, right? We say very quickly and to all the folks who come to us, this is the process. Go to your JAG officer, ask them for explanation, for top cover, for their view on things. We do that on a case-by-case basis, but we wanted to speak directly to the volumes of people who had come to us on this.
And it is very clear that no one should follow an illegal order, but it's very murky when you look at what is an illegal order. And if you go into morally, ethically, that's a pretty tough thing to look at and say, how do I navigate this?
Look, if you're going back to Nuremberg, right, that, well, they told me to do it, that's why I murdered people, is not an excuse. If you look at popular culture, there's like, you watch, A Few Good Men, like we have plenty of examples since World War II in Vietnam where people were told to follow illegal orders and they did it and they were prosecuted for it. So the best thing for people to do is go to their JAG officer, their local law enforcement or a legal officer in their unit, and ask for some explanation, ask for help. And that's what we've been advising people to do.
It does imply that the president is having illegal orders, which you
Weird. They went to Nuremberg. They always go to Nuremberg. And yet they never really do anything about it. I think there were like 12 people that were hung after Nuremberg. 160 something people were convicted. There were tens of thousands of Nazi officers giving orders that would otherwise be considered illegal, you know, against the rules of war. And there were hundreds of thousands of people who carried them out. And her example was Nuremberg and A Few Good Men, which was a movie. She doesn't remember any of the examples. Probably she should follow my friend Garrett's Substack and be able to read about the atrocities and the things that actually happened in Vietnam. Isn't that funny? They don't have a single concrete example. So if they're going to call you the Nazi, the Hitler, the fascist, the Stalinist, the whatever it is that they call everybody, shouldn't you just earn it? They've already decided that. I thought that's what the second version was about. I thought they knew that. Amy Klobuchar also really good. Totally nails it. She has an idea of what it might be about. She wasn't one of the people in the video, but allow her to maybe illuminate you.
I wonder, do you know what the specific illegal acts are that your Democratic colleagues were referring to there?
Well, it's very clear in this code for the military that you cannot follow unlawful orders. And, you know, that would be, I'll just use an example. Some of the judges have now found in certain cities that it is not legal to send in the National Guard. And those National Guard members have come home. Some of them are still there. But if their commander were to tell them, hey, go out on the streets and do this and that, that's not following the order that is in law. So I just use that example. I'm sure my colleagues would have others.
Yeah, it was really the National Guard problem. And remember that all orders have to be vetted by a judge. I also heard the statement in there earlier that it's really hard to suss out what an illegal order is. It's actually not. Any of my friends out there who have been through basic training, remember, we all got training on this. You get specific training. You don't get it in federal law enforcement, to my knowledge. I don't remember getting it there, but you should have some pretty good judgment. You're supposed to have some life experience. But like, if you're in the military, you've been trained on what an unlawful order is and how to suss it out. Are you going to be the best at determining it if you're an 18-year-old goofball who just got out of basic training? Probably not. But a lot of people knew that it was an illegal order when they went down and said the COVID vaccine mandates had to go out, that they were going to order the use of something that was a emergency use authorization, medical device or test, or medical intervention. You can't have informed consent. You have to have it. You have to be able to consent. It's not optional, which is why all those things were struck down, which is why the current Secretary of Defense, now War, Pete Hegseth, said, yeah, it was an unlawful order. And where the hell were all these brave politicians at that time? They weren't there. I don't believe them. Again, if you're going to be accused and convicted in the court of public opinion, regardless, wouldn't it be good if he just earned the stuff that they've already convicted him of mentally and try to fix some of these problems that we were talking about? If the problem is reliance on slave labor, then let's fix that. If the problem is inflation, let's tighten our belts. Like, I get it. I'd like to be able to buy a house and not have to pay through the nose. But my parents' first house that they bought was at like 12 or 13 or 14% interest because they were trying to recover from some of the bad policies that happened in the 70s. Americans have been able to survive as long as we have periods of stupidity followed by very nasty, uncomfortable sense. And we're not getting that. We're just getting more of the same and someone who wants to be liked. And I'm telling you this, I've been on Alex Jones's program quite a few times. I like Alex because Alex he's a wild man. He's unpredictable. He's very bright. He's been doing this for a long time. If a guy like that, like Alex Jones, who's been hit with a $1 billion judgment for speech and really knows what it's like to be targeted, I would say in the same way that very few people do. Trump knows what it's like to be targeted by the state. If Jones is going to lose support, and every time that he and I are not on camera, he's like, I need Trump to win so that I can stay in America. I need it to continue. I need him to be successful. And I'm terrified that he will not be. And then he goes and drops this. This is interestingly enough shared by Russian TV, or Russia Today. So just ignore the top little banner here. But listen to what Jones is saying. You don't have to agree with everything he says. I don't at all. There's plenty of things that he says that I don't. But imagine the guy who's been out there trying to find every single program I've ever been on with him. He's trying to find a way to excuse behavior by the Trump administration. And he can't do it anymore. And we're in November. We're 1 year in, and he's looking going, I don't know if this can be pulled out of the death spiral. And he's not wrong. Everybody takes their time to get here. I saw it a little bit earlier than most of you guys. It's not MAGA bashing to say that the thing that was sold was never delivered. And it turns out maybe they never even intended to. Listen to this from Jones.
And I'm just going to say it point blank. I'm not a bandwagon person. I don't pile on when other people are doing something. But I know MTG well. She's a woman of incredible integrity, brought up poor, self-made, very successful construction company, a woman of great integrity. She announced last night that she is resigning. I predicted on the Tuesday broadcast, she didn't tell me this, but I talked to her at length, and it sounded to me like she was thrown in the towel just because she can't be part of something that's, quote, a lesser of two evils. And she's very popular in her district, wins by some of the widest margins of anyone in Congress, and we'll play her statement here in a moment, but that ties into all of this. But I'm not saying this because of what she just did. I'm going to have to reflect on this, and I'm going to have to pray about it, and I'm going to take a few weeks on it, I think, is the most important thing to do. But I'm not a person that is normally conflicted. I think I have a lot of knowledge, a lot of depth, a lot of sources, a lot of context. And when I do get conflicted on something, I just have to go to God with it and pray about it a lot. And then go to that place that King David talked about, the quiet place, the Most High. And then I'm going to make my decision. And I mean, if God tells me tonight, I'll make my decision. But I am seriously inches away from not supporting Trump anymore. Because I am not going to watch him commit political suicide.
That's heavy. That's heavy coming from that guy. Again, on and off camera. All he wants to do is see something be successful. And for those of us who are watching it, we realize it's like, I'm not sure that you have enough runway to do that anymore. I'm going to give you a series of little clips here to kind of chew on, which will remind you of, I would say, people coming to a clearer vision of what's happening and how much time is left and how it's not working. And the holidays really does bring that in because people start spending money on big meals, family gatherings, external expenditures for things like gifts, because we have this tradition, because we are culturally a Christian nation, even if all the founders were not. I get all that. When the job numbers come in questionable, where deportation numbers are not what they should be, when you've got big announcements and little impact. It's hard. It's hard to sit there and still be a cheerleader. And then you find out that so many of the cheerleaders were actually in freaking Nigeria and they were selling hopium, right? Which is the same thing that was sold in 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 under Obama. Same crap. It's just sold to a different audience. We didn't have the same sort of social media ability, but selling all that stuff from India and Pakistan, realizing that Americans want things to be done, but what do they want? They want not to go through any of the hard stuff. They just want to win. They want to see the winning team win, and they don't want to see any of the hard work. We want to skip the training part of it and the difficulty with a montage. Isn't that it? Wasn't that from Team America? The montage? You skip all the hard work. Rocky didn't become some stud fighter because he just woke up one morning and then he fought. That's what we'd like to do. We want that cheat code or that quick little pill to go. But in reality, they cut through all the hard stuff and they just show you. And it's endless amounts of sweat and pain and potential injury and running behind a freaking bicycle and going up and down the steps. And none of that stuff feels good. It just feels good at the end of it. The other day I was doing push-ups and my daughter was watching. My dad's like, nobody likes doing push-ups when they're doing them, but it feels good when you're done. That's the American value. And people are starting to realize is that we're not doing the hard thing. How are we going to get the payoff? I'm not sure we're going to get there. Watching Alex Jones get there too is tough. Anyway, here's Fox News doing a spin and realizing, maybe we don't have the business scenario. It's not going to go the way that we hoped it would. Let me make sure I've got this clip about the jobs numbers here. Oh, that's a SNAP benefits. Sorry. Here we go. Let's do the There it is. All right, let's talk about the inflation piece here. Let me just show you some of the things that are not landing home. Even this excuse doesn't land. Brett Baer's not even buying it, and that's never a good sign.
Every day, and my prediction is that first quarter, second quarter, what we are going to see is we have brought the inflation down. It is curving down. And real income, the other side of that equation is real income growth, and we are going to see this from all this investment.
Would a $2,000 tariff dividend check going to people be inflationary?
Well, there are a lot of things that are going to happen next year.
Is that one of them?
And that could be one of them. And again, maybe we could persuade Americans to save that, because one of the things that's going to happen next year is the Trump accounts. Every child who was born from January 1st for the next 3 years is going to get a government account that goes into the stock market. So every American child born for the next 3 years, starting January 1st, is going to have that. They can take it out when they're...
We're going to give you a $2,000 dividend, maybe, and maybe we can persuade you to save it so that we don't have inflation, because you'll just turn around and dump it into the market because people make bad financial decisions. And by the way, we'd also like to buy you with some Trump accounts. If you have a baby, we're going to give you a government-managed stock market index account, apparently, right? More government. The solution to the problem is always more government. Government created the problem, and they're going to give it to you more. And then there's Scott Bessent, he's the Treasury Secretary, giving us what? Like they're going to pay us back with our own money to tell us how great they're doing? It's socialism. It's redistribution. If that's what America First means, if that's what MAGA, Make America Great Again, is like a socialistic program where they take money out of my paycheck and rather than me investing it in my own kids, we're going to go and give it so they can create a government program, the least efficient way to do it. How many of you hope that there'd be like more Social Security programs? You're like, oh, Social Security, it's so well managed. I think we should have more, but let's do it for kids this time. And they thought that's what people wanted. How about just like get the hell out of the way? Deport the people that don't belong here and then figure out where the chips fall. And maybe it'll be difficult in the interim.
The unemployment rate going up to what is a cycle high of 4.44% if you look at the full number. And it's not good news. Because if you look at, these are people entering the workforce, yeah, not so much. The way that the Bureau of Labor Statistics calculates this, they interpret the numbers as follows. They use a Census Bureau population estimate to inflate the survey sample size to the U.S. population size. So the number that they're using, the census number, they're using for population growth is based on a comprehensive population update that was done at the end of last year. Chris Lowe, the economist, adjusted for known border crossings and deportations now under President Trump. The actual numbers likely showed that half that number that was used in this calculation is reflected half that much labor force growth. So cut that labor force growth number in half. That is near zero employment growth in the household survey used to calculate the unemployment rate. So the unemployment rate an unemployment rate that is still 4.44%. That is the ratio in the sample. So it's like if you adjust the calculation, it's not because of good news. And we're going to.
That was on Fox Business, and they're doing their best to just be like, there's no way we can lie and spin this any longer. Who's going to be in the next administration that's going to try to pick up this mantle? Kristi Noem? Because that's the other piece of it, right? That lady made a very compelling case that essentially they've been juking the numbers, which is the same claim that Trump was making about Biden's numbers. It's the same claim that every administration comes in and says, well, the previous people were lying, but our numbers are actually good, and that's why we're so great. And then you go like, no, all of you are lying. And they all continue to not solve the actual problem, which is like, can you just give us less government? This is why we're rhinos, people, whether you like it or not. If you listen to this program and you have a constitutionally conservative-minded attitude, if your attitude is less government is the answer, that's the solution, no matter where you get it, just cut government anywhere, then you would not be excited about a government shutdown ending. You'd be like, well, that's the worst possibility. Like, shut it all down. And then let's see what happens. Let's let the states pick it up. They keep selling you this thing and telling you it's a win. And the only reason why it continues to get propped up is because these fake grassroots, like Astroturf nonsense out of Cambodia and Pakistan and India and Nigeria are pulling money on your optimism. Yeah, somebody said it in the chat, DHS Barbie. Here's Border Barbie telling you that a win and what is America First? It's spending another $1 billion on the surveillance state. If you need evidence that we are getting cooked by people who just keep solving the problem with more problems, this is going to be the best example of it. They're going to give another $1 billion to TSA. Remember, her budget went to like 150 or $200 billion to be spent on, I thought it was deporting everybody. Like hire all the dudes and deport all the people. Maybe not shoot the first generation idiot who's honking on the horn and then text about it, but like get rid of all the people that are not supposed to be here. That was what the hope was. The best we can give you is more surveillance in the airport.
I wanted to come and be with all of you today to talk about the fact that we as the Department of Homeland Security are going to be investing over $1 billion in new technology and new advancements in the security systems at security checkpoints in airports across the country. That is the biggest investment that we've seen in screening technologies in years, in over a decade, and we know that it is our responsibility not just to keep travelers safe, but also to make sure that we're getting them to their locations and to their destinations safely, on time, and efficiently, and also in a manner that can be pleasant and can be an enjoyable experience for them and for their families.
Well, that just sounds lovely. I would just love to have a pleasant and enjoyable experience. Traveling is a pain in the ass. We understand that. Again, Oregon Trail example. Sometimes people don't even make it through the trip, historically speaking. Don't give me more government surveillance, please. Don't spend more of our money and try to solve it with the biggest possible hammer that exists. She had to take a trip out to Vegas to be at the F1, whatever the race, so that they could show their faces and do fun stuff, but not before Kash Patel, who joined her out there, stopped in St. Louis to do another photo op. We have a photo op administration that's all about PR, and this is the same problem that I saw really early on. I was talking to a reporter the other day. One of the women who works for the FBI director, her name is Erica Knight. She's one of the PR people. She asked me early on about the Epstein problem. So this is going to sum it all up. This is exactly what I saw very early on, before any of you, because I had these conversations behind the scenes. I spoke with Ms. Knight when Kash had been, just before he'd been confirmed, I think. And she was like, how do we head off this issue with the Epstein? Like, how would you solve the Epstein files issue? And I was like, oh, I think it's really straightforward. You just get a bunch of agents that are nonpartisan, senior investigators, white collar and criminal, and people who have experience in child sex trafficking, working those cases. You get a handful of these agents that are ready to work, and you sequester them in a place where they will not be bothered by anything. It's like, I'm a solutions guy. So what does that look like? Okay, take some agents that know how to do the work. Put them in a place where they're not going to be distracted. Move them to Pocatello, Idaho. Give them hotel rooms. Give them space to work out of Pocatello. Give them space to work out of Billings, Montana. Whatever. Get them away from Washington, D.C. and any of the political pressure. Assign some people from DOJ. Get a couple of AUSA, some prosecutors that understand RICO, understand white collar, understand child sex trafficking. Get them all together. Violent crime people. Move them into the same place. Give me some co-located assistant United States attorneys and FBI agents. Give them unlimited access to the entire file, whatever's there, and all the adjacent files that are connected, and let them work a case without any political interference. And when it's done, kind of like a special prosecutor, but a special task force within the FBI. And she was like, that's a great idea. It's like, thanks. I don't know. She sent me a text message an hour later with the press release announcing that they had done that. By the way, they never actually went and did that. Thank God. But she was like, here's what we would announce. It's like, no, do the work, then claim the credit. That is not how this agency works. That is not how this government under Trump has been working. They claim the credit because they had the idea, and the results are always secondary, which means that we're screwed on it. Here's Patel claiming results that are not real. With Eric Schmidt, this is an embarrassing PR thing again. All about PR, all about looks, all about fluff, and how did you take it? All astroturfed, none of the substance. If you did the work, you wouldn't need to tell us about it because we'd know. We'd feel it.
We're here in St. Louis with Director Kash Patel. He and I talked very early on, even during the confirmation process, of fighting violent crime here in St. Louis. He's been so great. We have the largest infusion of permanent FBI agents in the country per capita now in St. Louis. We're glad he's here. He's going to brief everybody about what's going on.
Senator, thanks so much for having us here in Missouri. And the senator's right. Fighting violent crime is one of the top priorities for the Federal Bureau of Investigation. When you have great elected leadership like the senator we do here in Missouri, and great state representatives and local law enforcement willing to get after the fight, you're going to see what we can do, just like we did in places like Memphis right here in St. Louis, and we're excited to get to work.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
You can't solve the problem with the FBI. You can't solve the problem with the National Guard. You can't solve the problem with DHS people that are not actually getting the work of DHS. I don't even know that we need a DHS. I know we don't need an FBI because I know better. We don't need a DHS because they didn't have one when I was born in this country, and we were doing just fine. We took all the worst lessons from 9/11, and all we're doing is we're applying them harder and stupider instead of actually solving the problem. In the meantime, what's getting swept under the rug? Apparently, the guy who tried to shoot Donald Trump and almost killed him, and actually did kill somebody else and injured others, that guy just acted alone. And he totally wasn't working on behalf of anything else, despite the fact that Tucker Carlson, Miranda Devine, Breonna Morello are out there reporting this crazy stuff on the shooting that happened in Butler. You'd think that would have been a watershed moment for people's awareness to go, holy crap, this is real. Epstein stuff, don't look over here. Release the files, cover it up for national security. What about the pipe bomber scenario? We saw, and you guys may not have seen this, over Friday afternoon, just coming into the weekend, John Solomon announced, breaking news being shared by this transparent government, that the pipe bomber in the hoodie on the night of January the 5th, before January 6th, visited the Congressional Black Caucus Institute and a bush outside. That story was first shared months ago by Armitage and was officially covered aggressively on October the 8th by The Blaze, and we're being gaslit by the people who are the official propaganda outlets of this particular administration, telling us that it's new. How soon will it be that they try to take credit for finding this woman, Shani Kirkhoff, and say that she's the pipe bomber? How soon will it be that Just the News or Fox and Brooke Singman go out there? They tried to debunk the Thomas Crook stuff, but you can't get away from what the documentary that was put out by Tucker Carlson and then the follow-up article by Miranda Devine and by Breonna. These are real. These are real stories that people really cared about, and they were actually talked about really aggressively. But the PR administration, it's not a win for them to reveal that our government works against us if their goal is just to add more government, which it keeps trying to be. I'm going to play you a little piece of this Tucker thing. If you guys haven't actually sat and watched this, it's about 30 minutes. I watched it at 2x while I was on the bike. It's worth watching it. You can watch it really fast and you'll still get it. This looks like a playbook subject, which is exactly what the FBI runs, but the CIA and DHS do their own versions of it. It looks exactly like a government put-up job gone wrong. And Steve Friend and I have been talking about it since forever. George Hill has come on this program and talked about it. At some point, you're going to end up with a broken arrow. How many times can our government create the solution and then the problem, which is like, we created this terror plot. We solved this terror plot. Give us more money so we can stop and create more terror plots. At some point, one of those people is going to get away. Every bit of it has always looked like Thomas Crooks was something like that. Something was goading him along. And what if he just grabbed a rifle he wasn't supposed to? You guys tell me what you think after watching the Tucker thing. Put it in the comments below. Watch it. If you haven't seen this, you're missing out on a pretty good bit here. That's Thomas Crooks doing some dry fire. It's going to come on with audio in a second. But he's dry firing. There's video they found on his Google Drive, which nobody had seen before. So he had some weapons experience. His grip is not bad.
These remarks were especially notable because they came at the final phase of Crooks's YouTube commenting. At that point, a new character emerged into the conversation, a user named Willie Tepes, who started pressuring Crooks to commit violence. For example, quote, if a gun and a badge is all that is needed, then authority obviously comes from the barrel of a gun. We have more guns than they do. There is no way we can avoid a war at this point, so you better just get used to the idea. We have nothing to lose and everything to win. And the alternative, a global police state, is unacceptable. Nothing in life is simple, but that is no argument against doing it. So who is this Willie Tepes? Unfortunately, we don't know. The FBI hasn't made any mention of him in public, although they certainly know he exists. Just days after the shooting, somebody screenshotted Tepes's YouTube account page, despite the fact he had very few followers. To the extent that he can be traced online now, you can find his username being used on a foreign Antifa website. Those sites link him to the Nordic Resistance Movement, which has been designated a terrorist group by the U.S. State Department. That's all we know. We do know, however, that Crooks's online footprint abruptly ends after his encounter with this mysterious figure, Willie Tepes. Regardless of whoever Willie Tepes is or was and what his motives may have been, who he may have been working for, there is no doubt that Crooks was ripe for recruitment by someone.
I'm going to suggest that all of us are sort of ripe for that sort of recruitment because we all kind of see the same problem. I think America is in the same moment, and I saw it over the campaign, and I see it still right now. And I think as more and more people become disillusioned and realize that there's astroturfing and there's fake nonsense, and the solution to the government problems is more government, and that's what's being sold to us, the more that happens, the more people are going to be susceptible to that sort of despair. And it's a really dangerous moment. And unfortunately, what it is that we saw a promise made that we were going to pull back from the brink, and they didn't do it. They've just given us more brink. They've just tried to basically build up and put up a little retaining wall to keep us closer to the edge safely. People are going to have the same attitudes. I saw it over the campaign season as we got towards the end, that Americans are kind of feeling the same thing, that the public sentiment that we had pre 9/11, 97, 98, 99. This attitude that if you got rid of politicians, nobody would feel bad. That violence is clearly an answer because the state continues to use it, whether it's, in reasonable or otherwise. And the government has no ability to check its own instinct to keep growing itself. So where's it going to run into that hard line? And that's why a Willie Tepes internet account, which could just as easily be a Chinese bot coming out of a server farm, guys, just so you guys are aware, or it could be a government provocateur who wants to show you that the reason we need more government is because there's all these dangerous radicals out there that are willing to do dangerous stuff. What about the non-radicals? What about those of us who just want to be left alone? And all you're going to do is you're going to tell us like, well, we're not going to do that anymore. I don't do things simply because people tell me. And the answer is because I lived through 2020 and I saw that so many people are willing to do exactly what they were told. So this watch an unlawful order, it doesn't hit real well for the people that are on the left that are trying to claim it now. But how about those of us that know what an unlawful order is and have already decided and have already proven that we're not willing to follow them? Because there's a lot of us that are in that scenario. That's going to be a hard thing to square. And I think the more people that get disillusioned with the false promises, which are not being realized, Alex Jones is getting off the wagon, if MTG is retiring, if Tucker Carlson is asking real simple questions here, and the answer is that, well, don't look there, that's not an approved information source that we're going to give you, you're going to see some real danger in this country. That doesn't mean that it's going to be everywhere, and it doesn't mean it's going to be at your house. It just means that you should, mentally prepare yourself. Forewarned, forearmed, etc. Somebody in our chat earlier said you've never had too much guns, too much ammo, or too much bacon. That seems true. So I think that's where we're going. And that means maybe we'll get a course correction that they didn't plan on, that you can't PR message, which means it'll probably be like messy, sloppy, and ugly. I think that's what's happening right now. I'm interested to see where this week goes. I also am going to step away for a couple of days. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're going to do nothing but family. And I think we might do since we normally do our call-in show on Thursdays, we're probably not going to have a call-in show with this. I mean, I know we're not going to have it on Thanksgiving. I may do one on Tuesday night, or we may do one on Wednesday morning for everybody, for anybody, subscribers or otherwise, where you can call in and just tell us what you're thankful for. Because it'd be nice to kind of have that positive moment. There's a lot of negative news. All I see is news. All the news I read is negative. So I'd like to hear what you guys are thankful for in your life. And then we just take a breath and have some family time, which is what it's worth being thankful for. All right. That's the end of it for today. Let me tell you, make sure you've liked the video if you're watching over here. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please do so. We'd appreciate that. Love to have you as a follower on Rumble. Love to have you as a follower on YouTube. YouTube continues to grow. Same thing over on X. If you're watching on those, the programs that are better for us, both user experience and I think control, is on Rumble and on YouTube. And if you're watching after the fact on X or something like that, go check us out at KyleSerafinshow.com. You don't even have to download the app. You can watch it on your computer. check it out there and get our Spotify show. Again, there it is, KyleSerafinshow.com. Easy way to do it. That supports us. And more importantly, I think it's a better user viewing experience. I did bring you kind of a palate cleanse, but it's not really a cleanse. It's just sort of like the way that it feels right now. I think this guy, which I played during the campaign season, is kind of all of us right now, or certainly guys like me. So you tell me what you think. I don't know if it's cleansing, but it's kind of therapeutic to hear that other people do have these thoughts just like I do.
We're living under corporate and medical fascism. This is tyranny. When do we get to use the guns? No, and I'm not, that's not a joke. I'm not saying it like that. I mean, literally, where's the line? How many elections are they going to steal before we kill these people? So.
There's more and more of that out there. So just be aware of it. And if you're feeling it, you're not alone. Doesn't mean that that's what you should do. Just means that you're not alone. All right. God bless all of you. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.